The golden rays of the Hawaiian sunset painted the luxurious resort in hues of orange and pink. Rachel adjusted her neatly pressed uniform, took a deep breath, and prepared herself for another long evening shift. The Grand Horizon Resort wasn't just any resort. It was where the world's wealthiest came to escape, celebrate, and indulge in paradise. For Rachel, it was a place of both opportunity and haunting reminders of a life she was still piecing together. As she walked into the grand ballroom, a mix of laughter, the clink of glasses, and soft jazz music enveloped her. Tonight was no ordinary evening. The resort was hosting an exclusive gala for high-profile guests. Rachel had spent hours memorizing seating arrangements, dietary preferences, and the names of the VIPs. She prided herself on professionalism, but nothing could have prepared her for what was about to unfold. Balancing a tray of champagne glasses, Rachel made her way across the ballroom, flashing polite smiles at the guests. She was almost at the center of the room when a deep, familiar laugh echoed through the crowd. Her feet froze mid-step. The tray in her hands trembled slightly. It couldn't be. Her gaze darted toward the source of the sound. There, at a corner table near the expansive floor-to-ceiling windows, sat a man in a crisp navy suit. His face was partially obscured by the soft glow of the chandeliers, but his profile sent a jolt through Rachel's body. Her heart raced as memories flooded back, memories of him. It had been 6 years since Mark, her husband, was declared dead after a tragic factory fire. 6 years since she had held his hand, laughed at his jokes, or seen his warm, reassuring smile. 6 years of grief, loneliness, and raising their son Ethan on her own. And yet, there he was, alive. Or at least someone who looked uncannily like him. The man, Alex Carter, according to the guest list, was laughing with a stunning woman seated beside him. She was glamorous, effortlessly elegant, and leaned in close to him as if they shared an intimate secret. The way he smiled at her, the way he gestured with his hands, it was undeniably Mark's mannerisms. Rachel's grip on the tray tightened as a flood of emotions overwhelmed her. Shock, confusion, and even a spark of anger. She blinked rapidly, hoping that the image before her would change, that the man would be someone else entirely. But when her vision cleared, there he was, laughing again as if he didn't have a care in the world. She forced herself to breathe, her mind spinning with questions. Was she losing her grip on reality? Could this be a case of mistaken identity? Or was it possible? No, impossible, that Mark had faked his death and was now living a lavish life under a new identity? Rachel knew she needed to remain professional. She had a job to do, and this wasn't the time or place to confront her swirling doubts. But the pull was too strong. She couldn't stop her feet from moving, slowly edging closer to the table, trying to get a better look. As she approached, Alex glanced up, his gaze sweeping the room before briefly landing on Rachel. Her breath caught in her throat. Their eyes locked for a fleeting moment, and the world seemed to stand still. But there was no flicker of recognition in his expression, no hint of the man who had once been her everything. Instead, his gaze was cold, indifferent, like she was just another server in the sea of staff attending the event. Rachel's heart shattered all over again, but this time, the shards were laced with confusion and doubt. She turned away, retreating to the kitchen under the pretense of refilling her tray. Her hands trembled as she set the glasses down on the counter. Could it really be him? And if it was, how could he sit there, smiling and laughing, as if the life they had built together never existed? Rachel didn't know what was real anymore, but one thing was certain: the answers wouldn't come easily. As the night went on, she couldn't shake the image of Alex Mark from her mind. She knew she had to find out the truth, even if it meant unraveling everything she had come to believe. Little did she know, the truth was far darker than she could have imagined, and her journey to uncover it would lead her into a web of secrets, lies, and danger. And so, Rachel's story begins, a tale of love, betrayal, and the haunting reality that sometimes the past refuses to stay buried. If you're intrigued by Rachel's journey and want to uncover the dark secrets ahead, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us bring more gripping stories to life. Rachel's life had always been a blend of dreams and hardships. Growing up in a small town in Oregon, she had envisioned a future filled with stability and love. Those dreams seemed to materialize when she met Mark, a kind and ambitious engineer who swept her off her feet with his unwavering dedication to building a life together. They married young and soon welcomed their son, Ethan, a bright-eyed boy with a contagious laugh and an insatiable curiosity for the world. For years, their family was her sanctuary, a source of joy and purpose. But that was before the fire. 6 years ago, a devastating explosion at the factory where Mark worked shattered everything. It was supposed to be a routine day, but a chemical leak caused a chain reaction, engulfing the facility in flames. The rescue team searched tirelessly, but Mark's body was never recovered. The authorities concluded he had been incinerated in the blaze, and Rachel was left with a hollow sense of finality. Rachel spent the next few years rebuilding her life in fragments. She moved to Hawaii with Ethan, accepting a job at the Grand Horizon Resort, a prestigious haven for the elite. It wasn't the life she had dreamed of, but it provided enough to keep a roof over their heads and ensure Ethan could attend a good school. The resort was the epitome of luxury, perched on a cliff overlooking the turquoise expanse of the Pacific Ocean. Its architecture blended modern elegance with Hawaiian traditions, featuring sprawling gardens, infinity pools, and private suites designed to cater to billionaires, celebrities, and dignitaries. For the staff, however, it was a demanding environment with strict expectations. Rachel had become a fixture among the team. Guests adored her warm smile and ability to handle even the most eccentric requests with grace. Her colleagues respected her work ethic, though most knew little about her personal life. To them, she was a competent and reliable team member, always putting the needs of others before her own. But behind the poised exterior, Rachel was a woman still grappling with grief. The nights were the hardest. She would sit by the window of their modest apartment, staring at the waves crashing against the shore, her thoughts drifting to Mark. She tried to focus on Ethan, who had become her anchor through the storm. His boundless energy and infectious laughter reminded her that life, no matter how fractured, was still worth living. Ethan, now 8 years old, was a precocious child with a love for science and storytelling. He often asked questions about his father, yearning to piece together an image of the man he barely remembered. Rachel did her best to keep Mark's memory alive for Ethan, sharing stories of their life together and how proud his father would have been of him. But each story was a double-edged sword, bringing both comfort and pain. The Grand Horizon Resort offered Rachel a sense of routine and distraction. Each day brought its own challenges, from managing demanding guests to ensuring the resort's high standards were met. The endless flow of celebrities and high-profile clients had become background noise to her until the gala that night. The gala was a hallmark event for the resort, attracting an exclusive guest list of business tycoons, royalty, and Hollywood stars. Rachel's manager had stressed the importance of flawless execution, and she had spent the entire day preparing for the occasion. Yet, beneath her polished demeanor, Rachel felt a pang of unease as the evening approached. It wasn't unusual for her to feel the weight of exhaustion after a long day, but this was different. A gnawing sensation that something was about to disrupt the delicate balance of her carefully constructed life. The ballroom was a masterpiece of opulence that evening, adorned with crystal chandeliers, cascading floral arrangements, and tables set with the finest china and silverware. The soft hum of conversation and the clinking of glasses filled the air as servers moved seamlessly through the crowd. Rachel moved with practiced ease, ensuring the guests' needs were met while keeping herself invisible. It was a skill she had perfected over the years, blending into the background while remaining attentive to every detail. But the moment she heard that laugh, her carefully built facade began to crumble. It wasn't just the sound. It was the way it resonated within her, stirring memories she had spent years burying. The man at the center of the room, Alex Carter, had a commanding presence. Everything about him, from his tailored suit to his relaxed confidence, exuded wealth and power. Yet, it wasn't his status that drew Rachel's attention. It was his unmistakable resemblance to Mark. The resemblance was uncanny, but the differences were jarring. Mark had been warm and approachable, a man who found joy in simple moments. Alex, by contrast, seemed polished and distant, surrounded by an air of exclusivity. His interactions with the glamorous woman at his side, Sophie, were effortless, as if they had known each other for years. Rachel's mind raced as she observed him from a distance. She had accepted Mark's death as a tragic accident, mourned him, and moved on the best she could. But now, seeing Alex threw everything into question. Was it possible that Mark had survived the fire and chosen to leave his old life behind? Or was this merely a cruel twist of fate? A stranger who bore an eerie resemblance to the man she had loved. Her thoughts were interrupted as a colleague called her name, snapping her back to the present. Rachel forced a smile, suppressing the turmoil swirling within her. She couldn't afford to lose focus, not here, not now. But deep down, Rachel knew she couldn't ignore what she had seen. The resemblance was too striking, the timing too coincidental. The world she had painstakingly rebuilt was beginning to crack, and she couldn't shake the feeling that Alex Carter, or Mark, held the key to answers she had long stopped searching for. The evening carried on, but Rachel's mind remained tethered to one question. If Alex Carter truly was Mark, why had he let her believe he was dead? Rachel couldn't sleep that night. The image of Alex, or Mark, as her heart screamed at her, was seared into her mind. She tossed and turned, her thoughts racing. Why was he here? How could he look so carefree, so alive? The questions gnawed at her, making it impossible to rest. By morning, she had resolved to find out the truth. The next day, the resort buzzed with activity as preparations continued for Alex Carter's extended stay. Rumors swirled among the staff about his wealth, his mysterious background, and his glamorous companion, Sophie. Rachel listened in silence, absorbing every detail. He had booked one of the most exclusive villas, complete with a private infinity pool and 24-hour service. This meant Rachel might be assigned to his villa, a thought that both terrified and thrilled her. By mid-afternoon, Rachel's chance came. Her manager handed her a folder with instructions for a private dinner setup at Villa Orchid. Alex's suite. He's requested the best service, the manager said. Make sure everything is flawless. Rachel's pulse quickened as she approached the villa later that evening. She adjusted her uniform, smoothing the creases and taking a deep breath. The tray in her hands felt heavier than usual, her nerves amplifying every step. As she reached the villa, the sound of soft laughter and clinking glasses drifted through the open doors. The villa was a masterpiece of luxury. The open layout showcased breathtaking views of the Pacific Ocean. With warm lights reflecting off the water, Rachel stepped inside, carefully placing the tray of champagne and hors d'oeuvres on a marble table. Ah, perfect timing, came a smooth voice. Her heart skipped a beat as Alex walked into the room, his presence commanding. He was dressed in a casual yet impeccably tailored outfit, his sleeves rolled up just enough to reveal a luxury watch that probably cost more than her annual salary. Thank you, he said, his eyes briefly meeting hers before moving away. Rachel's breath caught. Up close, the resemblance was even more striking. His eyes, his posture, the way he ran his fingers through his hair. It was all Mark. But there was something different, too. His expression held a sharpness, a confidence she had never seen in her husband. Anything else you need? Mr. Carter, she managed to ask, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her. Before Alex could respond, Sophie entered the room. She was stunning in a sleek evening dress, her presence as striking as the man beside her. She leaned on Alex's arm with a familiarity that made Rachel's chest tighten. No, we're all set, Sophie said with a dismissive smile, barely glancing at Rachel. You can go now. Rachel nodded and turned to leave, her hands trembling, but as she reached the door, she heard Alex's voice again. Wait. She stopped, her heart pounding. Slowly, she turned back to face him. What's your name? He asked, his tone casual, but his eyes studied her closely. Rachel, she replied, her voice almost a whisper. He tilted his head slightly, a flicker of something, recognition, crossing his face. But it was gone in an instant. Thank you, Rachel. That will be all. She left the villa, her mind a whirlwind of emotions. Had he recognized her, or was she imagining it? That night, Rachel couldn't hold back anymore. She waited until her shift ended and the resort quieted. The villa lights were still on, and she could see Alex standing on the terrace, gazing out at the ocean. Sophie was nowhere in sight. Summoning every ounce of courage, Rachel walked up to the villa. Her palms were sweaty, her heart racing as she knocked on the glass door. Alex turned, his brow furrowing. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then he opened the door. "Rachel?" he said, his tone puzzled. "Is something wrong?" Her breath hitched. Hearing him say her name with that same voice, the voice she thought she'd never hear again, was almost too much. "I need to talk to you," she said, her voice trembling. "Please." Alex hesitated, then stepped aside, motioning for her to come in. As Rachel entered, the tension in the air was palpable. She stood in the middle of the room, feeling both exposed and determined. "You look familiar," Alex said, his tone cautious. "Have we met before?" Rachel's heart clenched. It was him. It had to be. But why was he pretending not to know her? "You don't remember me?" she asked, her voice breaking. Alex stared at her, his expression unreadable. "Should I?" Tears welled up in Rachel's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "6 years ago, my husband died in a factory fire, or at least, that's what I was told. But now I see you here, alive, and you're telling me you don't remember me?" Alex's face hardened. "I think you've made a mistake. I'm sorry about your husband, but I'm not who you think I am." Rachel's hands balled into fists. "Don't lie to me." "Mark," she snapped, her voice rising. At the name, Alex flinched, but his expression quickly turned cold. "My name is Alex Carter. I don't know who Mark is." Rachel stepped closer, her voice trembling with anger and pain. "I know it's you. You can't fool me. The way you move, the way you talk, it's you." Alex's jaw tightened. He looked away, his gaze fixed on the floor. For a moment, Rachel thought he might finally admit the truth. But instead, he straightened and met her eyes. "You're mistaken," he said firmly. "I'm sorry for your loss, but I think you should leave." Rachel stared at him, her heart shattering all over again. She wanted to scream, to demand answers, but his cold demeanor left her speechless. Finally, she turned and walked out, tears streaming down her face. As she disappeared into the night, Alex stood frozen in place, his expression conflicted. Unbeknownst to Rachel, Sophie had been watching from the shadows, her lips curling into a knowing smile. "Quite the story she told," Sophie said, stepping into the room. Alex didn't respond, his gaze fixed on the door where Rachel had just left. Sophie placed a hand on his shoulder, her voice low and calculated. "If she gets too close, you know what we have to do." Alex's eyes darkened, and for the first time, doubt flickered in his expression. The truth, buried beneath layers of lies and secrets, was beginning to surface, and Rachel had no idea just how dangerous her search for answers would become. Rachel couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal and confusion that had settled in her chest after her confrontation with Alex. Every instinct told her it was Mark, yet his cold denial had left her questioning her sanity. Was it possible that she had imagined the similarities, her grief twisting her perception, or was he deliberately trying to erase his past and her? Her determination grew stronger with each passing day. Rachel needed answers, not just for herself, but for Ethan, who had spent years asking why his father wasn't coming home. If there was even a chance that Alex Carter was truly Mark, she couldn't walk away. Rachel decided to do what she did best: observe. Working at the resort gave her the perfect vantage point to watch Alex without drawing attention to herself. She took careful note of his habits, his movements, and the people he interacted with. Alex spent most of his time in the villa, or attending high-profile meetings in the resort's executive lounge. Sophie was always by his side, an enigmatic figure who seemed more like a handler than a romantic partner. Her sharp eyes scanned every room they entered, as though she were constantly assessing threats. Rachel's first breakthrough came when she overheard a conversation between Sophie and a man who appeared to be one of Alex's associates. She was clearing plates from a private dining area when she caught fragments of their exchange. "The package will be ready for transport by the end of the week," Sophie said in a hushed tone. "Make sure there are no loose ends." Rachel's heart raced as she retreated quietly, making sure they didn't notice her. Package? Loose ends? The cryptic language only deepened her suspicion that something illegal or dangerous was happening. Determined to learn more, Rachel reached out to a former friend of Mark's who worked in cybersecurity. She hadn't spoken to Tom in years, but when she explained the situation, he agreed to help. A few days later, Tom sent her an encrypted email. His findings were shocking. Alex Carter had no digital footprint prior to 6 years ago. His name appeared on business records and luxury property deeds, but there was no trace of his existence before then. Mark's employer, the factory that had burned down, was part of a larger corporation involved in shady dealings, including money laundering and offshore accounts. Rachel's stomach churned. If Mark had faked his death to escape these people, it explained why he had stayed hidden. But why was he now parading as a wealthy businessman under a new identity? Tom added one last chilling detail. The corporation Mark had worked for was connected to an international syndicate known for silencing whistleblowers. Rachel's next clue came unexpectedly. While delivering fresh linens to Alex's villa, she noticed a black leather briefcase sitting on the coffee table. Sophie wasn't around, and Alex was out by the pool. Her pulse quickened. She knew she shouldn't, but curiosity overpowered her better judgment. Quickly and quietly, she opened the briefcase. Inside, she found stacks of documents, bank statements, offshore account numbers, and passports bearing Alex's photo under various names. Her breath hitched when she spotted a photograph tucked between the papers. It was a picture of Mark, Rachel, and Ethan, taken years ago on a family trip to the beach. The sight of the photo sent a wave of emotions crashing over her, proof that Alex was Mark, and he hadn't erased their life entirely. But why did he still have this picture? Before she could examine further, she heard footsteps approaching. Panicking, Rachel quickly closed the briefcase and slipped out of the villa unnoticed. Rachel couldn't shake the feeling that Sophie was the key to unraveling the mystery. The woman's guarded demeanor and cryptic conversation suggested she knew more than she let on. That evening, Rachel followed Sophie to the resort's spa, where she had booked a private session. While Sophie was distracted, Rachel cornered her in the changing room. "You're hiding something," Rachel said, her voice firm. Sophie raised an eyebrow, clearly unimpressed. "Excuse me? I know who Alex really is," Rachel continued, her tone sharpening. "And I know you're involved in something dangerous. I don't know what it is, but I'm not going to let you keep me in the dark." Sophie's expression shifted from dismissive to icy. "I suggest you mind your own business. Rachel, you have no idea what you're walking into." Rachel stepped closer, refusing to back down. "Maybe not. But I know one thing. You can't hide the truth forever. If you think I'm going to let you or Alex ruin my family's life again, you're wrong." For a moment, Sophie said nothing, her gaze piercing. Then, with a smirk, she leaned in and whispered, "You have no idea how far we're willing to go to protect what's ours. Walk away, Rachel, before you lose more than you already have." Rachel's blood ran cold as Sophie turned and walked away, her warning hanging in the air like a dark cloud. Rachel's confrontation with Sophie left her more determined than ever. She returned to Tom, asking him to dig deeper into Alex's connections. The results were terrifying. Tom uncovered evidence that Alex's offshore accounts were being used to funnel money into shell companies linked to the syndicate. Sophie was listed as a director in several of these companies, confirming her deep involvement. But the most shocking discovery was a recent transaction, a large sum of money transferred to a private security firm specializing in removals. Rachel's heart sank. The cryptic conversation she had overheard suddenly made sense. The package wasn't an object, it was a person. And if they were talking about her or Ethan, time was running out. Rachel knew she couldn't take on Alex and Sophie alone. She reached out to Tom again, this time asking for help contacting the authorities. He hesitated, warning her that going to the police might put her in more danger. But Rachel was resolute. "I've lost too much already," she said. "I won't let them take anything else from me." Together, they devised a plan to gather enough evidence to expose Alex's true identity and the syndicate's operations. It was a risky move, but Rachel was willing to do whatever it took to protect Ethan and to find out why Mark had chosen this dangerous path. What Rachel didn't realize was that Alex was watching her, his own plans beginning to take shape. He had noticed her growing boldness, her determination to dig into his life. And while part of him admired her resolve, another part knew it could lead to her destruction. In the shadows, Sophie prepared for the inevitable. She had underestimated Rachel once, but she wouldn't make the same mistake again. As the pieces of the puzzle began to align, Rachel found herself on the brink of a revelation that would change everything she thought she knew. Not just about Alex, but about the man she had once loved. Rachel's heart raced as she walked through the quiet resort grounds late that night. The air was thick with tension, the faint hum of waves crashing against the cliffs below barely audible over the pounding in her chest. She clutched her phone tightly, ready to call Tom or the authorities if things went south. The plan was risky, but Rachel knew she had no choice. She was done waiting, done being a passive observer in a life that had spiraled out of control. It was time to confront Alex or Mark and demand the truth. Earlier that day, Tom had sent her one last critical piece of evidence, a time-stamped video from years ago showing Mark signing documents tied to the syndicate's shady operations. It was undeniable proof of his involvement. More importantly, it confirmed that Alex Carter's wealth was built on the ashes of Mark's old life. Rachel knew this confrontation couldn't happen at the villa, where Sophie's ever-watchful eyes would protect Alex. Instead, she left an anonymous note slipped under his door, requesting a meeting at the resort's secluded cliffside garden, far from prying eyes. The note read simply, "Meet me at the garden tonight at 11 p.m. Come alone if you want to keep your secret safe." When Rachel arrived, Alex was already there, standing with his back to her. The moonlight cast long shadows across the manicured hedges, illuminating his figure. He turned as she approached, his expression unreadable. "I had a feeling it was you," Alex said, his voice calm but wary. "What do you want?" "Rachel?" Rachel stood firm, her anger bubbling to the surface. "I want the truth. No more lies, no more denials. You owe me that much," Alex sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I told you already, you're mistaken." "I'm not— Stop lying!" Rachel's voice cracked as she interrupted him. She pulled out her phone and held it up, playing the video Tom had sent her. The sound of Mark's voice echoed through the garden, as the video showed him signing documents linked to the syndicate. Alex froze, his face pale. "I know who you are, Mark," Rachel said, her voice trembling. "You can't hide anymore. Not from me. Not from Ethan. You left us to grieve, to think you were gone forever. And for what? Money? Power?" He took a step closer, his hands raised in a gesture of surrender. "It wasn't like that, Rachel," he said quietly. "Please, let me explain." Rachel's eyes burned with unshed tears. "Then explain. Tell me why you abandoned us. Tell me why you let your own son grow up thinking his father was dead." Alex's shoulders sagged as if the weight of his secrets had finally crushed him. He sat down on a nearby bench, gesturing for Rachel to join him. She hesitated, but her need for answers outweighed her anger. "I didn't want to leave you," Alex began, his voice heavy with regret. "The fire at the factory wasn't an accident. It was a warning, a message from the syndicate. I had stumbled onto something I shouldn't have, evidence that could have taken them down. When they found out, they gave me a choice, my life, or yours and Ethan's." Rachel's breath caught. "I knew they wouldn't stop until they got what they wanted," he continued. "So I made the only choice I could. I faked my death and disappeared, hoping they'd leave you both alone. It was the hardest thing I've ever done." "And what about now?" Rachel demanded. "Why come back? Why build this empire?" Alex looked away, his jaw tightening. "I thought I could stay hidden forever, but the syndicate found me. They gave me an ultimatum: work for them or watch everything I care about be destroyed. So I played their game, building a new identity and funneling their money through legitimate businesses. It was the only way to keep them off your trail." Rachel stared at him, her emotions swirling. "You could have told me," she said softly. "We could have faced it together." Alex shook his head. "You don't understand what they're capable of. Rachel, if I had stayed, you and Ethan would have been their first targets. I couldn't let that happen." Before Rachel could respond, the sound of footsteps shattered the tense silence. Sophie emerged from the shadows, her face cold and calculating. "Well, isn't this touching?" she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Alex stood abruptly, positioning himself between Sophie and Rachel. "What are you doing here?" "Sophie?" Sophie smirked. "Did you really think I wouldn't find out? You've been slipping. Alex, or should I say Mark? All these little secrets, these meetings. Did you think I wouldn't notice?" Rachel's heart pounded as Sophie pulled a gun from her jacket, aiming it directly at Alex. "You've become a liability," Sophie continued. "The syndicate doesn't like loose ends, and unfortunately for you, that includes her." She gestured toward Rachel with a nod. Rachel froze, her mind racing. She hadn't expected things to escalate this quickly. "You don't have to do this, Sophie," Alex said, his voice steady despite the tension in his body. "We can fix this. I'll disappear again. Rachel and Ethan don't have to be involved." Sophie laughed coldly. "Do you really think they'd let you walk away a second time?" "No, Mark. This is the end of the line for you and for her." Rachel knew she had to act fast. While Sophie's attention was on Alex, Rachel subtly reached for her phone and dialed Tom's number, leaving the line open in hopes he would hear what was happening and call for help. "Sophie, listen to me," Rachel said, her voice calm but firm. "You don't have to do this. Killing us won't solve anything. If the syndicate sees you as a liability, they'll come for you too. You know that, don't you?" Sophie's eyes flickered with uncertainty. "Just for a moment. Think about it," Rachel pressed. "Do you really want to keep running? Always looking over your shoulder? Or do you want a way out?" Sophie hesitated, her grip on the gun loosening slightly. That was all Alex needed. In one swift motion, he lunged forward, knocking the gun from Sophie's hand. The weapon skidded across the stone pathway, and Rachel scrambled to grab it. Sophie fought back, her movements quick and calculated, but Alex managed to pin her to the ground. Rachel stood nearby, clutching the gun with trembling hands. "Call the authorities," Alex said, his voice strained. Rachel fumbled with her phone, finally speaking into the open line. "We need help now." Cliffside Garden at the Grand Horizon Resort. The authorities arrived minutes later, arresting Sophie and securing the area. Alex sat on the ground, exhausted and visibly shaken. Rachel stood nearby, her emotions a mixture of relief, anger, and confusion. As Sophie was led away in handcuffs, she glared at Rachel. "You think this is over? It's not. The syndicate will find you. They'll find all of you." Rachel shivered at her words, but she refused to let fear consume her. Turning to Alex, she said, "This isn't over. Mark, not by a long shot." He nodded, his expression filled with remorse. "I know, but maybe now we have a chance." The tension following Sophie's arrest hung over Rachel like a storm cloud. While Sophie was in custody, her ominous warning echoed in Rachel's mind. "The syndicate will find you. They'll find all of you." Rachel knew this wasn't an idle threat. The syndicate didn't leave loose ends, and now they had a reason to come after her. Ethan and Alex. For days, Rachel lived in a constant state of vigilance. She couldn't help but jump at every unfamiliar sound, her thoughts spiraling into worst-case scenarios. Her once peaceful life in Hawaii felt like a fragile illusion, and she knew the danger wouldn't go away unless she confronted it. Alex, or Mark, as Rachel had begun to call him again, was holed up in his villa under the resort's 24-hour security. He had been cooperative with the authorities, providing critical information about the syndicate's operations. But the closer they got to dismantling the organization, the more dangerous things became. "Do you really think they'll let you testify?" Rachel asked him one night during a tense conversation in the villa. Mark's face was drawn, his eyes shadowed with guilt and worry. "No," he admitted. "They'll come for me first. And if they can't get to me, they'll come for you and Ethan." Rachel's chest tightened at the thought of Ethan being caught in the crossfire. "We can't just sit here and wait for them to make the first move," she said firmly. "We have to do something." Mark hesitated. "There's only one way to stop them. Rachel, we have to expose their entire operation, not just pieces of it. And for that, I need access to my offshore accounts and their encrypted files. They're hidden in a location I never thought I'd have to return to." "Where?" Rachel asked. Mark's voice was heavy with dread. "The factory where it all started. The thought of returning to the site of the explosion that had changed their lives forever sent chills down Rachel's spine. The factory, long abandoned, had become a derelict monument to tragedy. It was the last place Rachel ever saw Mark or thought she had. Now, it held the key to their survival. With help from the authorities, Rachel and Mark devised a plan. They would travel to the mainland under the guise of a business trip, using fake identities to avoid detection. Once they reached the factory, Mark would retrieve the files while a small security team kept watch. The night before they left, Rachel sat with Ethan, watching him sleep. His small chest rose and fell in a steady rhythm, his face peaceful and unburdened. She gently brushed a strand of hair from his forehead, her heart heavy with the weight of the choices she had to make. Mark entered the room quietly. "He'll be safe," he said softly. "I made arrangements for him to stay with Tom while we handle this." Rachel nodded, though her stomach churned at the thought of leaving Ethan behind. "He's all I've had for so long," she whispered. "I can't lose him." "You won't," Mark said firmly. "I promise." The factory was as haunting as Rachel had imagined. Its crumbling walls and rusted machinery were shrouded in darkness, illuminated only by the faint glow of their flashlights. The air was thick with the scent of decay and mildew, and every creak of the floorboard set Rachel's nerves on edge. Mark led the way, his movements sure and purposeful. "The files are hidden in a secure server in the basement," he explained. "It's the only part of the building that survived the explosion intact." As they descended into the basement, Rachel's unease grew. The space was eerily silent, the hum of fluorescent lights long gone. Mark stopped in front of a metal door, pulling out a keycard he had kept all these years. "This is it," he said, sliding the card through the reader. The door clicked open, revealing a small room filled with outdated computer equipment. Mark worked quickly, booting up the server and inserting a USB drive. The whir of the machines echoed in the confined space as he began extracting files. "This has everything," he said, his voice tinged with both relief and urgency. "Bank transactions, offshore accounts, names, dates, it's all here." Rachel stood guard by the door, her eyes scanning the dark hallway beyond. Her pulse quickened when she heard a faint sound in the distance, a shuffle of footsteps. "Mark," she whispered urgently. "We're not alone." Before Mark could respond, the faint sound of footsteps grew louder. Rachel's heart raced as shadows flickered in the dim light. She reached for the small firearm the authorities had provided her, her hands trembling as she aimed it toward the hallway. Suddenly, a voice echoed through the basement. Well, Mark and his little family reunion. Rachel's blood ran cold as a man stepped into view, flanked by 2 armed enforcers. His face was unfamiliar, but his presence exuded menace. "You really thought you could hide from us forever?" the man sneered. Mark stepped forward, shielding Rachel. "You don't have to do this," he said. "I'll give you the files. Just let her go." The man chuckled darkly. "Oh, we'll take the files. But letting her go? That's not part of the plan." Mark glanced back at Rachel, his eyes filled with regret. "Run," he whispered. "No," Rachel shot back. "I'm not leaving you." Before either of them could act, the man raised his weapon. Rachel reacted instinctively. Firing her gun, the sound echoed through the basement, and chaos erupted. Mark lunged for the server, grabbing the USB drive as Rachel provided cover fire. "Go!" Mark shouted, shoving Rachel toward the exit. They sprinted through the dark corridors. The enforcer's footsteps closed behind. Rachel's heart pounded as she navigated the maze of hallways, her flashlight casting erratic beams of light. Mark was by her side, his breath ragged but determined. They burst through a side exit, the cool night air hitting them like a wave. Their security team was waiting nearby, engaging the syndicate enforcers in a brief but intense firefight. Mark and Rachel didn't stop running until they reached the safety of the getaway car. Hours later, Rachel and Mark sat in a safe house provided by the authorities. The USB drive, now in the hands of federal agents, was their best chance at dismantling the syndicate once and for all. But the cost of their mission weighed heavily on Rachel. "They won't stop," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Even if the syndicate falls, there will always be someone else. Someone who knows our names." Mark placed a hand on hers. his touch both reassuring and tentative. "I'll keep fighting," he said. "I'll do whatever it takes to protect you and Ethan." Rachel met his gaze, her eyes filled with both gratitude and uncertainty. "I don't know if I can ever forgive you, Mark," she said softly, "but I know you're trying." As the first rays of dawn broke through the window, Rachel allowed herself a brief moment of hope. They had survived another night, but the road ahead was still fraught with danger. The safe house was silent, save for the faint hum of the wind rustling the trees outside. Rachel sat by the window, her nerves stretched thin. The recent events had worn her down, but she couldn't afford to rest, not with the syndicate's threats looming over them like a storm cloud. Mark, or Alex as he was still known to the world, paced the room, his every movement taut with tension. "They'll come," he said quietly, his voice steady but his eyes dark. "It's only a matter of time." Rachel, holding a picture of Ethan in her hands, looked up at him. "Then we need to be ready." The first sign came in the early hours of the morning, a low rumble of vehicles stopping just beyond the safe house's perimeter. Mark peered through the curtain and cursed under his breath. Rachel's heart sank as she saw the dark silhouettes of men emerging from the shadows. "They've found us," Mark muttered. He grabbed the small firearm he kept by his side and turned to Rachel. "You know the plan." Rachel nodded, her face pale but resolute. "Get Ethan and go. Don't stop until you're safe." Mark stepped closer, his gaze softening for a moment. "I'll hold them off as long as I can, but if I don't make it, don't." Rachel interrupted, her voice trembling but firm. "You will make it." Mark held her gaze for a beat longer before turning toward the door. Rachel moved swiftly to wake Ethan, wrapping him in a coat and holding him close. The boy, still groggy, clung to her as she whispered assurances she wasn't sure she believed herself. The syndicate's enforcers were well trained, their approach silent and calculated. Mark had barricaded the doors, but it wouldn't hold for long. The first loud bang reverberated through the house as the men began forcing their way in. "Go!" Mark shouted over his shoulder, firing a warning shot toward the door. Rachel grabbed Ethan's hand and bolted toward the back exit, her heart pounding in her chest. The cold night air hit her as she stumbled outside, heading for the nearby forest that offered their only chance at cover. Gunfire erupted behind her, a chaotic symphony of violence that sent adrenaline surging through her veins. She didn't look back. She couldn't. Ethan's safety was all that mattered. The forest was dense and unfamiliar, the uneven ground making every step a challenge. Rachel clutched Ethan's hand tightly, her breath coming in sharp gasps. Behind them, the sound of footsteps grew louder. "Mom, I'm scared," Ethan whimpered, his voice trembling. "I know, sweetheart," Rachel said, her voice soft but firm. "Just keep running. We're almost there." The "there" she referred to was a rendezvous point set up by Tom and the authorities, a safe zone where reinforcements would be waiting. But it felt impossibly far away. As they wove through the trees, Rachel heard a voice calling out behind them. It was cold and mocking, unmistakably the syndicate leader. "You can run, Rachel, but you can't hide forever. Do you really think you can outsmart us?" Her grip on Ethan tightened as she pushed forward, refusing to let fear slow her down. Back at the safe house, Mark was fighting for his life. The syndicate enforcers had breached the building, and the firefight was relentless. Mark moved with precision, his training kicking in as he took out one assailant after another. But he was outnumbered, and he knew his chances were slim. "You think this will end here?" the leader taunted as he stepped into the room, flanked by more armed men. "Even if you survive tonight, we'll find her. We'll find your son. You can't protect them." Mark's jaw clenched, his resolve hardening. "You'll never touch them," he growled. With a calculated move, he fired at the nearest man, using the chaos to retreat toward the back of the house. His goal wasn't to win, it was to buy Rachel and Ethan enough time to escape. Rachel's legs burned as she pushed herself forward, Ethan stumbling beside her. The sounds of their pursuers were dangerously close. She spotted a small clearing up ahead and realized, with a sinking feeling, that they had run out of cover. A figure emerged from the shadows, one of the enforcers. His gun was trained on her, his expression cold. "It's over," he said flatly. Rachel stepped in front of Ethan, her body trembling but her stance protective. "You'll have to go through me," she said, her voice shaking but defiant. The man smirked, raising his weapon. Before he could pull the trigger, a shot rang out from the trees. The enforcer dropped to the ground, and Rachel turned to see Mark emerging from the darkness, bloodied but alive. "Run," Mark shouted as more men closed in. Rachel hesitated, torn between staying to help him and protecting Ethan, but Mark's voice was urgent. "Go, Rachel. I'll catch up." With tears streaming down her face, Rachel scooped Ethan into her arms and sprinted toward the rendezvous point. Just as Rachel reached the edge of the clearing, headlights pierced the darkness. Black SUVs screeched to a halt, and armed agents poured out, their weapons trained on the syndicate enforcers. "Get down!" one of the agents shouted. Rachel dropped to the ground, shielding Ethan as a chaotic firefight erupted around them. She could only pray that Mark was still alive. Minutes felt like hours as the battle raged. When the gunfire finally ceased, Rachel dared to lift her head. The enforcers were subdued, and the agents moved quickly to secure the area. Then she saw him, Mark, limping but alive, being escorted by one of the agents. Their eyes met, and relief flooded through her. The files Mark had retrieved, combined with the syndicate leader's capture, provided the authorities with everything they needed to dismantle the organization. Within days, high-ranking members were arrested, and their operations were shut down. Rachel, Mark, and Ethan were relocated to a new safe house, where they could finally begin to rebuild their lives. The scars of the past were still fresh, but Rachel knew they had survived the worst. One evening, as the family sat together watching the sunset, Mark reached for Rachel's hand. "I'll never be able to undo the pain I caused," he said quietly, "but I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you." Rachel looked at him, her heart heavy but hopeful. "We have a long road ahead," she said, "but we'll face it together." Ethan, unaware of the full extent of what had transpired, ran up to them with a bright smile. "Can we play now?" he asked, his innocence a reminder of what they were fighting for. Rachel nodded, pulling him into her arms. "Yes, sweetie, let's play." The weeks following the confrontation with the syndicate passed in a blur. Rachel, Mark, and Ethan were moved to a secure location under witness protection, surrounded by rolling hills and quiet farmlands far removed from the chaos they had endured. For the first time in years, there was a sense of peace, a fragile calm they desperately needed. But the scars of the past lingered. Rachel often found herself awake at night, staring out at the moonlit fields, her mind replaying everything they had been through. Mark, too, carried the weight of his choices. The distance between them, though shrinking, was still palpable. Yet, in those moments of silence, they both found hope, a chance to rebuild, a chance to finally heal. Ethan was the light in their lives, his innocence and joy a reminder of what they had fought so hard to protect. He adjusted quickly to their new surroundings, making friends at school and spending afternoons exploring the countryside. One sunny morning, Rachel watched as Ethan chased butterflies near the edge of their yard, his laughter ringing out like music. She turned to Mark, who stood beside her, leaning against the porch railing. "He's happy," Rachel said, her voice soft. Mark nodded, his gaze fixed on their son. "He deserves to be." Rachel looked at him, studying the man she had once loved, the man who had risked everything to protect them, even if it had meant breaking their hearts. "Do you think we can be happy again?" she asked. Mark met her eyes, his expression raw with emotion. "I don't know," he admitted, "but I'll spend every day trying to make it possible." Their first step toward healing came in the form of a simple family dinner. It was the first time in years they had sat down together without fear hanging over their heads. The meal was modest, pasta and salad, but the atmosphere was warm. As they laughed over Ethan's stories from school, Rachel realized how much she had missed moments like this. She caught Mark's eye across the table, and for the first time in what felt like forever, she smiled, a genuine, hopeful smile. Later that evening, after Ethan was asleep, Mark approached Rachel on the porch. The stars stretched endlessly above them, the air crisp and quiet. "I know I can't undo the past," he said, his voice steady but tinged with regret, "but I want to try. For you For Ethan, for us. Rachel took a deep breath, her heart heavy with the weight of his words. It's not going to be easy, she said. There's a lot we have to rebuild. I know, Mark said, but I'm willing to fight for it if you are. Rachel hesitated, then nodded. We'll take it one day at a time. The days turned into weeks, and life slowly began to feel normal, or as normal as it could be for a family that had endured so much. Rachel took a job at a local bakery, finding comfort in the rhythm of kneading dough and serving smiling customers. Mark, under his new identity, worked with the authorities to help dismantle what remained of the syndicate, ensuring that no one else would suffer at their hands. Ethan's laughter became the soundtrack of their lives, his presence a constant reminder of what they had fought to protect. Rachel and Mark's relationship, though still fragile, grew stronger with time. They talked more, laughed more, and began to rediscover the love they thought they had lost. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, the family stood together in the yard. Ethan pointed excitedly at a firefly hovering nearby, his eyes wide with wonder. Rachel slipped her hand into Mark's, and for the first time in years, she felt a sense of peace. Their journey was far from over, but they had made it through the storm, and together, they were ready to face whatever came next. Life isn't about avoiding storms, it's about learning to dance in the rain. Rachel, Mark, and Ethan's story reminds us of the resilience of the human spirit, the strength of family, and the power of hope. What would you do to protect the ones you love? Could you forgive someone who broke your trust in the name of love? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget, if you enjoyed this story, like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more gripping tales. Your support helps us continue bringing you stories that inspire, thrill, and move you. See you in the next chapter.